Just realized we didn't run this one,
Which one?
the one that we're starting with. So we return. I'll just follow you. I think I have it right, but I'm just going to pay attention to you. So
We'll roll in.
great.
Yeah. Check.
Yeah,
Check.
me. That's what I just have that I'm starting, but you should sing with me. All right. Yeah, yeah. Okay. We're ready.
Okay. 1, 2, 1, 2.
We return, we return, we return, we return, we return, return again. We return, we return, we return, we return, we return to again and again and again to love, to love, to love. We return again to love. We return, we return, we return, return again. We return, we return, we return, we return, we return, return again and again to Hashivenu Adonai Erev Ashuva Kadesh Yameinu Kechet. La 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 la.
Tov and Shana Tova.
Shana Tova.
Ah,
Welcome to Rosh Hashanah at Temple B'nai Torah. It is an honor to be on the Bima tonight with a wonderful group of people. I'm Rabbi Molly Wiesel. I am joined by the amazing Rabbi Dusty Klass, our incredible music director, Eran Sabo, the very talented collaborative pianist, Alex Chadsey, and it is also super fun to have our special surprise guest with us tonight, Rabbi C.B. Souther, to help elevate our experience with your beautiful voice. Thank you. So, before we start, please take 15 seconds, turn to the people next to you, make sure you know each other's names, and say Shana Tova. Shana
Hello,
Tova.
I'm Rabbi Dusty Klass.
Very kind. Nice to meet you. Shana Tova.
Shana Tova.
You're really just Shuki, right?
Yeah. We're cousins.
Oh, yeah. Meet up. All right. Now that you know everybody in the room, I have some perhaps boring things but important things to share. Hopefully you all have a Machzor, or High Holy Day prayer book. If you do not have one but you want one, you can put a finger in air and someone will magically bring one to you, I guarantee it. Our Machzor opens from right to left, which is the way our prayer works, and we will announce many pages tonight, and if we do not announce a page number, it is probably because we are just turning to the next page. But we will do our best to announce page numbers. Other important things, the bathrooms are back there behind me, and emergency exits abound. Take a moment to notice whichever one is closest to you. Great. Okay. I need one of Nestor's vests. Okay. Before we begin, let's take a moment to ground ourselves. It has been a hard year, and the last few days are no exception to that. It can be really hard to walk into a sanctuary and offer songs of blessing and hope for the new year when the world outside feels scary and overwhelming. All of us up here are right there with you in that. As we've been preparing for the High Holy Day season, I found myself turning to the words of Rabbi Jonathan Sacks. These are words that I know well, and yet every time I read them, they help me breathe a little deeper and feel more certain that what we are doing here tonight is significant and actually exactly what we need to be doing together. Rabbi Jonathan Sacks wrote, "People often confuse optimism and hope. They sound similar, but in fact, they're very different. Optimism is the belief that things are going to get better. Hope is the belief that if we work hard enough together, we can make things better. It needs no courage, just a certain naivety to be an optimist. It needs a great deal of courage to have hope. No Jew, knowing what we do about history and our own past, so often written in tears, can be an optimist. But no Jew, who is a true Jew, can ever give up hope. And that is why Judaism is, for me, the voice of hope in the conversation of humankind. And hope," he writes, "is what transforms the human situation." Tonight, we join together in the ancient words of our tradition, reaffirming our belief that the world can be better this next year and that we are called upon to be part of that transformation. Our service tonight will begin on page 11 with the lighting of our holiday candles. I'd like to invite up our temple president, Andy Held, along with his wife, Freeman, and daughter, Sky.
Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kishanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lehalikne shel yom tov. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, שהחיינו וקיימנו והגיענו לזמן הזה. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם, שהחיינו וקיימנו והגיענו לזמן הזה.
So I'm going to add my words of welcome to Rabbi Molly's. I am Andy Held, president of TBT, and I'm feeding back.
Also,
And I'm the one who's supposed to fix that. So I'm multitasking and doing a bad job of it. I apologize. It's probably that one. On behalf of our board, our staff, our clergy, and our members, welcome to our High Holy Day services and to our community. My welcome to you is just as heartfelt if this is your first time here or your 1000th. We all have our own reasons for connecting here at TBT. I have heard some common themes. For many of us, it's faith or family. For some of us, it's about culture, the comfort and continuity of traditions, foods, and experiences. For me, it's about community. The value I put on community spans generations. My mother was born in Prague, Czechoslovakia, in 1935. Every year at Passover, I tell the story of my grandparents, my mother, and her sister escaping Czechoslovakia after the Nazis invaded in 1939. With no family here in the US, the community they found in New York City and then in upstate New York was an anchor in a time of tumult and loss. It was followed by rebuilding and then decades of a meaningful life here in the US. I'm sure my mom, at age 89, is watching our live stream from her home in near Austin, Texas. My family's story is one view into a universal truth. For most of us, life is often a joyous path. But when we face challenges or even tragedies, community eases our burdens. The value of community, though, is not just support when times are hard. We have celebrated many simchot, many happy events, and being with community, with folks who you care about and who truly care about you, that adds joy to celebrations. Returning to the story of my family, Finding community when I moved across country mattered to me. Nearly 20 years later, as parents, TBT answered a pressing question. How will we teach our children what a community is and how to be part of one? For us, there was only one answer. You have to live in a community to teach it. I close my long welcome as I started. Welcome to TBT and our High Holy Day services. I hope to see all of you throughout 5785, connecting with folks who share your interests, your joys and sorrows, and your desire to be part of our community. Shana Tova. Shana Tova.
We continue on page 15. I'll invite Keith to join us. Tikuva Chodesh Shofar Bekeseh Liyom Chagenu Ki Chok Yisrael Hu Mishpat LeElohei Yaakov. At the new moon, at the full moon, for our feast day, sound the shofar, for that is the law of Israel, the way of Jacob. Hallelujah, B'tega Shofar. Please rise. Baruch atah Adonai, shomea kol truat amo Yisrael, berachamim. Tkiya.
Yashkoach. We're going to remain standing as we announce the new year. God, we stand at the cusp of a new year, looking forward, looking backward. So much accomplished, so much neglected, gains and losses, joys and sorrows, victories and defeats. A life, my life, our lives. You, God of old, you are steadfast witness, source and shelter. We bend our hearts to you, recalling all of your gifts. God, for consolation in our grief, for sunlight at midnight, for hope in our celebrations, for warmth and for shelter, for current and tide, for family and for friends, for the flow of beauty and grace. We bend our lives back to you as the new year descends, in love and in service, our offering to your holy name. We are on page 19. Eloheinu v'Elohei Avotenu v'Imotenu, Yehi Ratzon Shenizkeh Livracha Bishnat Chameshet Alafim Sheva Me'ot Shmonim V'Chamesh. Our God and God of our ancestors, may we know your blessings in the year 5785. We just did with this with the kids.
We did.
Eternal One, bless us and the whole house of Israel with renewed life, happiness and peace, comfort and courage, resilience and strength. May the words of our heart be acceptable to you in the new year that stretches before us. We are forever grateful for the gift of life. We're going to turn now to page 20 as we join together in the Baruch Hu, our call to worship. We'll say Todah to Keith and Adrian, and we'll remain standing.
Baruch Adonai.
may be seated. How did I end up with
An extra
somebody
prayer book.
brought a prayer book up here? It might be Andy. Andy, is this your prayer book? I don't know. I want to share something that I heard about in a podcast.
Of course you do. I mean, I've only been here 3 months, but I've already learned about a lot of new podcasts.
That is fair. So a few years ago, I was listening to an episode of Hidden Brain called Kindergartening. The host was interviewing psychology professor Alison Gopnik. She was unpacking 2 analogies of parenting based on her book titled The Gardener and the Carpenter. Gopnik said in the interview that if you look at the prevailing culture of parents and caregiving in the United States, it's a picture that's a lot like the picture you might imagine if you thought about a carpenter. The idea is that if you just do the right things, get the right skills, read the right books, you're going to be able to shape your child into a particular kind of adult.
So you might say that carpenters are more rigid and meticulous planners.
Yes, you might.
That makes sense to me. I mean, my entire experience of carpentry comes from putting together IKEA furniture, but I have found that I am more likely to successfully assemble a structurally sound shelf when I lay out all the pieces beforehand and follow the instructions one step at a time and in order. Since you sent me this podcast and I also listened to it, should I share the analogy of the gardener?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay. Being a gardener, Gopnik said, is all about creating a rich, nurturant, but also variable, diverse, dynamic ecosystem in which many, many different things can happen. And a system that can respond to the environment in unpredictable kinds of ways. One thing about a gardener is you never know what's going to happen in the garden. The things that you plan fail, but then wonderful things happen that you haven't actually planned.
Ooh, that tracks, literally. I remember a few years ago when I noticed something growing in my garden that I definitely did not plant. I didn't know what it was, so I let it grow. And then a few weeks later, it was clear that we had pumpkins growing in our front yard. What? I'm sure that we have a random bird and its droppings to thank for the seed landing in our yard, but boy, oh boy, it was super cool when that happened.
I am always down for a surprise squash.
Me too. In the podcast, Gopnik suggests a preference for this surprise squash parenting, or parenting as a gardener. In other words, you aren't necessarily following one parenting playbook with an intended outcome. You're building an ecosystem. You go with the flow and you see what grows. Maybe your child will turn into a beautiful tomato, and maybe your child will turn into a pumpkin. No, just kidding.
I mean, it's possible I did just purchase a jack-o'-lantern onesie for Charlie.
Love that. I love that for her. Here's the thing. Jewish tradition doesn't really align with Professor Gopnik's assessment, most particularly her depiction of carpenters as rigid and inflexible. In the very beginning of Pirkei Avot, we are instructed to make a fence around the Torah. Often, this metaphorical fence is portrayed much like Gopnik's carpenters. It is a fence built of rules, safeguards for my safeguards, as 15th century Italian rabbi and commentator Bartonura put it. But the fence that we want to talk about tonight, and the fence that we think Judaism actually offers us, is much less about stacking rules on rules, and much more about working to define the parameters of a space in order to better work with what we have within that space. In other words, Judaism teaches that we build a fence around the Torah so that she can flourish as Etz Chaim, a tree of life.
I heard a proverb at a conference a couple of years ago. Put a fence around a cow, you set the cow free. Now, as someone who leans vegetarian, I'll admit that I've got some inherent skepticism about this proverb, but apparently it is true that cows with no borders don't actually wander much. It's only when cows are fenced in that they fully explore their territory. I know it sounds counterintuitive to say that boxing something in will make it more free, but in fact it does. The speaker at the conference used this proverb as an example of how creating boundaries can actually free us to move more than we might otherwise.
When the Roman army destroyed the Second Temple in Jerusalem in 70 CE, they destroyed more than a set of buildings. They destroyed the central sacred space and primary gathering place of the Jewish people. One might think that since the blueprints for the temple itself exist in the Hebrew Bible, our ancestors would have simply found a new place to rebuild the temple. After all, we have the measurements. But our ancestors knew that the physical structure of the temple itself was not ultimately necessary for Judaism to survive and thrive. And so instead, they created a document called the Mishnah, in which they began to articulate the core values at play in making a variety of decisions about how to do Jewish in this new world absent of the temple. And immediately after the creation of the Mishnah, scholars began to dig deeper into the discussions that the Mishnah began, ultimately creating a second set of texts, the Talmud, which became the foundation for most of the rituals and practices that we would identify as Jewish today.
Now, Reform Jews can be critical of building a fence around the Torah. Some argue that doing so focuses too much on the letter of the law and not enough on the spirit of the law. But the Talmud itself, far from being a clear, concise blueprint, is messy and voluminous, full of conversations and disagreements, tangents, and topics one might never have expected to find in sacred literature. Talmud invites us to use the values of the Torah as a guide for making choices about how best to live Jewishly in the world. If we can imagine Professor Gopnik in conversation with the rabbis of the Talmud, we think they would argue against her preference for a gardening mentality and would turn to one of the foundational values of the Talmud, elu ve'elu, these and these. Oftentimes in the Talmud, when there are disagreements, the rabbis use this phrase, elu ve'elu, to name that both sides of an argument have merit. In other words, when we tap into both our inner carpenter and our inner gardener, we unlock greater potential and possibility than we ever could find using either one of these lenses individually. Building fences can actually enable greater growth and allow that which is inside the fence to grow more freely. Call it boundaried flourishing, if you will.
When you delve into the world of Jewish law, it is easy to spot fences because they are plentiful. We want to share two examples of modern Jewish practice where we see boundaried flourishing show up. The first is in how Jews do death and grief. When we experience the death of a person dear to us, it is often painful and overwhelming. In my closest group of friends, I am one of the only people with a religious tradition of any flavor. As my friends dealt with the loss of parents and siblings in the last few years, I have noticed that they get stuck in their grief. It's too much to handle, and they don't have a helpful way to process what they're going through. Judaism has a very clear structure for mourners, with rituals and words to say and a roadmap that is meant to make sure a person in grief moves forward, eventually reintegrating into society so as not to slip away into the abyss of their pain. The rituals do not necessarily make that loss easier, but they create a container for us to safely express grief.
I imagine that many of us have had moments of overwhelm this year about all of the pain and devastation and disparity in our world. So much is so broken, and it can feel hard to know where to start, or even how to figure out where to start. So often we end up freezing, and that's no help to anyone. Two texts from Talmud help provide the fences we need.
In Bava Metzia, we read, "If you lend money to any of my people that are poor with you." What does it mean to lend money to the people that are poor with you? Rav Joseph decided this meant that if the choice lies between a Jewish person and a non-Jewish person, lend the money to a Jewish person. If it's between your poor, meaning your friends and family, and the general poor of your town, your poor come first. And if it's between the poor of your city and the poor of another town, give to the poor of your own town first. But elsewhere in Talmud, in Gittin, we learn, we sustain the non-Jewish poor with the Jewish poor, visit the non-Jewish sick with the Jewish sick, bury the non-Jewish dead with the Jewish dead, for the sake of peace.
This is one of those instances that proves just how far Talmud is from a straightforward blueprint. Because on the surface, these two instructions on how to help others seem contradictory. In the first, the directive is clear. When deciding who to help, make geographic and relational proximity your guide. Always begin with those physically and ideologically closer to you. In the second, however, we are told that we have a responsibility to help everyone, whether they are part of our community or neighborhood or not.
So which is it? Our unhoused neighbors in downtown Seattle, or those whose houses were washed away by Hurricane Helene? Or those climate refugees halfway around the world whose home countries are no longer inhabitable? And when we give, do we give to an organization that helps Jews, or a Jewish organization regardless of who they help, or an organization that's doing great work but has no connection to the Jewish community? The beauty of these two Talmudic texts is that they offer parameters without boxing us into one right or wrong way. We have an obligation to help all people, not just Jewish people. And when figuring out where to begin, we might choose to start with those closest to us.
In a few moments, we will continue our service with Ahavat Olam. We tend to focus on the first two words of the prayer, which translate in our High Holy Day prayer book as love beyond all space and time. These words suggest a love that has no bounds, that cannot be contained, that cannot be fenced in. And yet, the prayer also lists a number of ways in which we access God's boundless love. And the list is made up of pretty boundaried things. Torah umitzvot, hukim umishpatim. Torah, sacred obligations, discipline, and law. It reminds me of one of the offerings in our year-round prayer book, which reads, "We seekers of God, how do we find you? In good deeds and in the study of Torah. And in your search for us, you find us in respect, true fellowship, companionship, and love through truth and peace, in the no that is really no, and the yes that is really yes."
As we enter 5785, we pray that we might, each of us, take a lesson from the Talmud by doing a little carpentry this season and discerning the values that will define how we live this year. May we gain clarity and more freely say the no that is really no, and confidently agree to the yes that is really yes.
May those yeses and nos form the boundaried flourishing that allow us to cultivate our trees of life.
And when we do so, who knows what surprise squash we might discover in our gardens.
Our service continues on page 24.
Ahavat olam beit Yisrael. Ahavat olam beit Yisrael. Ahavat olam. Ahavat olam beit Yisrael. What a great love, great love. What a great
Continue on page 26. The words of Shema.
בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודך והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבבך ושיננתם לבניך ודיברת בם בשבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך ושוכבך ובקומך וקשרתם לאות על ידך והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם אני אדוני אלוהיכם אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים להיות לכם אלוהים אני אדוני אלוהיכם Adonai Elohechem Emet.
We continue on the bottom of page 33 together.
You have stayed long enough in this place, God said. Time to go forward. Turn your face to the future. Believe that you can cross the sea and survive. Inside you is a Moses. Within you, Miriam dances, unafraid. Lift up your voice and sing a new song. Say
In a moment, we will rise for the Amidah. Please note, during these high holy days, we expand some of the blessings within the Amidah, adding words pertinent to this particular season, reminding God to remember us, l'chaim, for life. In our prayer book, the font of the added components is bold and dark gray, and the words can sneak up on you, so follow along closely. The Amidah begins on page 42. Invite us to rise in body or spirit.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu, Elohei Avotenu v'Imotenu, Elohei Abraham, Elohei Yitzchak, Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, Elohei Leah, Ha'el Hagadol, Hagibor v'Hanorah, El Elyon, Gomel Chasadim Tovim, V'konei Hakol, V'zocher Chasdei Avot V'imahot, U'mevig Geulah Lifnei Bneihem, Leman Shemo Be'ahava. Zochreinu l'chaim, Melech Hafetz b'chaim, V'choleinu b'sefer hachayim, L'ma'ancha Elohim chayim. Melech Ozer Moshia U'Magen, Baruch atah Adonai, Magen Avraham v'Ezrat Sarah. Atah Gibor le'olam Adonai, Mechayeh hakol atah Rav v'Hoshia, Morid hatal, Mechakel chayim b'chesed, Mechayeh hakol berachamim rabim, Somech noflim v'rofeh cholim, Umatir asurim, Umekayem emunato lishenei afar, Michamocha b'gevorot, Umido melach, ומחיה ומצמיח ישועה. מי כמוך אל הרחמים, זוכר יצוריו לחיים ברחמים.
ונאמנת לחיות הכל,
ברוך אתה אדוני מחיי הכל.
May be seated. Before we take time for silent prayer, we offer two prayers, each fervently praying for a form of peace and wholeness. In the first, Shalom Rav, we pray for a big, profound, and lasting peace to spread throughout the world. And we name God as Oseh HaShalom, the maker of peace. In the second prayer, Mishaberach, our prayer for healing, we pray for the refuah shlema, the complete, whole healing of individuals who are struggling. We need both of these prayers as we think about the world and the pain in our world. The pain surrounding October 7th and all the days since, the pain caused by hate and murder and destruction, the pain of loss and devastation for those whose lives have been turned upside down by Hurricane Helene. To the big, heavy hurting in the world, we in turn pray for a big, all-encompassing peace. And for each individual human who is suffering, perhaps you are suffering, or you're caring for a loved one who is suffering, we pray for a refuah shlema, a complete healing of body and soul. Pirkei Avot teaches that Hillel used to say, "Be of the disciples of Aaron, a lover of peace, Ohev Shalom, and a pursuer of peace, Rodef Shalom." Our perpetual role in this world is twofold: to love peace so dang much that we do not let the idea of it go, and to keep working towards peace, to not become so embittered that we give up altogether. God, we say, is the maker of peace. We are the lovers and pursuers of peace. In our Shabbat prayer book, there's a beautiful adaptation of Rabbi Abraham Joshua Heschel's words. It says, "Prayer invites God's presence to suffuse our spirits, God's will to prevail in our lives. Prayer may not bring water to parched fields, nor mend a broken bridge, but prayer can water an arid soul, mend a broken heart, rebuild a weakened will." May these two prayers for peace bolster our spirits so that we have the strength to continue loving and pursuing peace as we turn to God as our eternal source of shalom. Shalom Rav is on page 66.
Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam וספר חיים ברכה ושלום, ברכה ושלום ופן ארצה טובה, ברכה ושלום, ניזכר וניכתב לפניך, אנחנו וכל עמך בית ישראל, לחיים טובים ולשלום. ברוך אתה אדוני עושה השלום.
Our prayer for healing is on page 245. Before joining together in the words of our Mishaberach prayer, we take a moment to invite anyone who wants to say out loud the names of the people that are in your spheres that are in need of healing. If you are online, please share in the chat the names of loved ones.
Stan Geffen.
That's what we're calling to say that they need to be on the Mishaberach list.
Judy Souther. מי שברך אבותינו, אברהם, יצחק ויעקב, מי שברך אמותינו, שרה, רבקה, לאה ורחל, may the one who blessed our mothers, may
continue for the next few minutes in silence, offering prayers that we haven't said out loud yet, or the words that are on our own hearts.
We return, we return, we return, we return, we return, return again. We return, we return, we return, we return, we return, return again and again to you. To you. To you. We return again to you. Tis I. On Erev Rosh Hashanah, I always like to say that it's like the warm-up service for the rest of the High Holy Days. It's just like a sprinkling of some of the High Holy Day liturgy, and to Keith's lament, although you did a beautiful job, only one tekiah. Just giving us, it's like letting
Come
us
back
ease
tomorrow.
in. Yeah, come back tomorrow for more. And tonight, one of the foundational High Holy Day prayers that we offer is Avinu Malkeinu. Avinu Malkeinu begins on page 76. We are going to invite you, if you are able, to please rise as we open the doors of our ark. Join together. please join in the words in the English, starting at the top of page 76. Avinu Malkeinu, almighty and merciful, you alone are our sovereign. Avinu Malkeinu, for your sake, show us mercy. Avinu Malkeinu, act toward us as befits your name. Avinu Malkeinu, bring healing and wholeness to the ill among us. Avinu Malkeinu, allay the harshness of the decree against us. Avinu Malkeinu, inscribe us in the book of redemption and renewal. Avinu Malkeinu, remember our goodness and call it to mind. Avinu Malkeinu, act for your sake and save us. Avinu Malkeinu, almighty and merciful, hear our voice. Avinu Malkeinu, we have strayed and sinned before you. Avinu Malkeinu, have compassion on us and our families. Avinu Malkeinu, halt the onslaught of sickness, violence, and hunger. Avinu Malkeinu, halt the reign of those who cause pain and terror. Avinu Malkeinu, enter our names in the book of lives well lived. Avinu Malkeinu, renew for us a year of goodness. Avinu Malkeinu, almighty and merciful, answer us with grace, for our deeds are wanting. Save us through acts of justice and love.
We continue with Aleinu L'Shabeach on the bottom of page 83 with words that are similar but slightly different, as is the theme of the High Holy Days.
Aleinu l'shabeach l'Adon hakol, לתת גדולה ליוצר בראשית, שהוא עשנו לשומרי האדמה, והוא שמנו בשליחי התורה, שהוא שם חיינו איתם, וגורלנו עם כל העולם, ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים, הקדוש ברוך הוא. ונאמר, והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ, ביום ההוא, ביום ההוא, יהיה אדוני אחד, ושמו אחד.
We remain standing for Kadishat Home, bringing to mind all those who have died in this season and in years past. We hold them in our hearts as we offer the words of Mourners Kaddish together, bolstered by community, page 90. And in that this service is the service in which we first remember and are reminded of all those bits and pieces that are different, there is a word in here that repeats. Le'ela, the heights, and we say it twice, that he who dwells on the highest of heights during this season. Yitkadal v'yitkadash shmei Rabbah, v'yalmad yivrach cheruteh v'yamlich malchuteh, v'chayechon uvyomechon, v'chayeh d'chol beit Yisrael, ba'gala uvizman kariv v'imru amen. Yehei shmei Rabbah v'rach le'olam u'almei almaya, yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh, v'yitadar v'yitale v'yithalal shmei d'kedusha brichu, le'ela u'le'ela milchol birchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechamata, ta'amiran be'alma v'yimru amen. Yehei shlama Rabbah min shemaya, v'chayim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael, v'yimru amen. Oseh shalom b'mromav, hu ya'aseh shalom, aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'al kol yoshvei tevel, v'yimru amen. May the source of peace bestow peace on all who mourn, and may we be a source of comfort to all who are bereaved.
Amen.
Shalom bin Roma, Uyase Shalom Aleinu, Ve'al Kol Yisrael, Ve'imru, Amen. Ose Shalom bin Roma, Uyase Shalom Aleinu, Ve'al Kol Yisrael, Ve'imru, Amen. Ya'aseh Shalom, Ya'aseh Shalom, Shalom Aleinu ve'al Kol Yisrael. Ya'aseh Shalom, Ya'aseh Shalom, Shalom Aleinu ve'al Kol Yisrael. Oseh Shalom bin Roma, Uyaseh Shalom Aleinu ve'al Kol Yisrael, Ve'imru, Amen. Ya'aseh Shalom, Ya'aseh Shalom, Shalom Aleinu ve'al Kol Yisrael. Ya'aseh Shalom, Ya'aseh Shalom, Shalom Aleinu ve'al Kol Yisrael. Ya'aseh Shalom, Ya'aseh Shalom, Shalom Aleinu ve'al Kol Yisrael. Ya'aseh Shalom, Ya'aseh Shalom, Shalom Aleinu ve'al Kol Yisrael. Ya'aseh Shalom, Ya'aseh Shalom, Shalom Aleinu ve'al Kol Yisrael. Why don't you have a seat for like 30 more seconds? Before we leave tonight, a few things. Well, first of all, thank you all. Thank you all for
Thank you.
leading a beautiful, beautiful service. There are many, many people, volunteers and staff who have worked very hard and will continue to work very hard. So please say thank you to any of the people used to doing many of the things around here on your way out. And one of the things on your way out you will see is a bag. I know what you're thinking. It's going to be a brown bag because it's always a brown bag. It's not a brown bag. It's a green bag. But it has the same purpose, which is you are going to take a green bag home. You're going to fill it with food if you are able to do that. And then you bring it back on Yom Kippur, goes on the truck, and that goes to Jewish Family Service to help feed the hungry. So thank you in advance for helping us do that mitzvah. Be sure to grab a bag on your way out. And we will see you tomorrow morning at 10:30 for our morning service here. And then again, hopefully you will join us 4:15 for Tashlich in the afternoon. Shana Tova, everybody.
Shana Tova.
Let's sing an oldie but a goodie.
Yai la lai lai lai.
Yai la lai 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 lai. Yai la yai la lai lai lai. Yai la Leshana tova tikatevu. Leshana tova
Shana Tova.
Shana Tova.
Shana Tova.
Shkol.
יישר כוח.
That's beautiful.
יישר כוח.